So this is an introduction to Git as an exercise. This is the first exercise on the course, and what we're going to do here is create a little order, a little bit of structure. There are instructions for this, written instructions. Please read those and do the exercise via these instructions. This is just a help if you're struggling to understand. We'll quickly go through everything here. So if we look here, here are the instructions listed here. We can click on these links and move through the instructions. I would like you to read them carefully. Read through the instructions first. Then as you proceed through the exercise, read each section again, see what it is you're actually going to be doing, then try and implement the instructions. Rather than just line at a time, blah, 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 doing things, it'll go wrong, you won't understand where you are, you'll make a mistake. Read the instructions, they're there for a reason. If you are absolutely certain you know what is happening because you are good at computers, you know what paths are, you know how to create folders and directories, and you can keep order and stuff, well, maybe you can try and skip through things, but on your own head be it. So just make sure you know what you're doing. If not, read the instructions. And we'll go through everything now in this video. So this is the first tool that we're going to use is Explorer. This is an Explorer window. Mine's in dark mode simply because I like dark mode. Yours might be in light mode. Probably is if you're working on a HIG computer. So we start here with this Explorer window. And this is Explorer, not Internet Explorer. This is not a way of accessing the internet. This is the tool you will use to access the files on your computer and the network of computers that you are linked to. So we see the main window here. We have tools up here, and we have some quick access to folders here on the side. We have an address bar up here. This is interesting. I'm actually going to be working locally on my hard drive just to speed things up for me. I'm doing this. You might find that a lot of your work is a little bit slow when working on H:. We'll come to what that means in the exercise. You should read that. But I'll be working locally on my computer, which is C:. So this is approximately the same. Don't get too caught up on the exact address, but approximately the same. So now I'm in a folder here called Documents. If I click on that, you can see that it is under C:, users, and this is my HIG name here, and documents. But because the settings on this computer are set to Swedish, thanks to our IT department not allowing anything else, documents gets translated to document in this pretty view of things. So that's where I am. You will be on H:. You'll need to, in the instructions, create a folder called Documents or Document, whichever one you want to do, it's your choice. So I already have this folder. Now the next thing I need to do is create a subfolder for this course. So I'm going to right click just in this pane here, click on New, and then I choose Folder or Map there, and we call it IT1, which is the name of this course. The official name of this course is just the name that's used by everybody. So we do that, and we've created a new folder. We then click on it. We can see we move into that folder. We right click again, create a new folder, Map. And this one we'll call Doc or Docs. It's not hugely important. This next folder we will call Edit, because this is where we're going to put all the files that are editable, all the things that we want to be able to play around with, do things with. And then we had a folder here. This is a convenience folder for you, and we call that Final. This is where you put the stuff that you want to submit. Now you know that you've done the job. The job is done. This is a thing I can leave in to Canvas for me so that I can grade it. In a normal working circumstance, if you were working for on a contract, this would be where you put the stuff that you want to give to your customer, for example, or whoever it is that's ordered the job, so that you can keep a clear separation between the stuff that's your working data that maybe others shouldn't get hold of, or you just don't want them to see, and the stuff that is deliverable. So it's quite important to maintain this distinction. Now this folder structure, this was not entirely made up by me. It's not my invention. It's something that I learned years ago working for a company called Cheslock Manastrola, which is now part of WSP. Um, we were forced to work with this rigid structure, and I've continued along a similar line since then because it makes sense. You may not see the immediate sense in this. You might think this is frustrating and annoying. It makes sense. It really does. When you're working with GIS and remote sensing data, surveying data in general, there are so many files created. And especially when you're collecting field data and data from other sources, keep those separate. That's the next step we're going to come to. We need to keep our data separate from the editable files. Because what we don't want to do is to go out and spend valuable time in the field or download satellite data or whatever our source data is, and then destroy it through some silly process that we do. So we need to make sure we keep that separate. And then everything we do after that is a copy of that, is edited, stuff that's okay for us to change. We can always backtrack and go to the original data if we have it. Now, when we're working on this course and when you're working here, things aren't going to be that easy. We're going to allow a certain amount of change to the original data simply because you don't have the space to make so many copies. And also we can go back to the source if necessary by just re-downloading the data again. It's going to be available for you. So it's not as crucial here, but we are trying to indoctrinate good practice here. So this is all actually for your benefit. As boring as it may seem, it is for your benefit. So in the instructions, as we read, we have this is our folder structure that we want. So we need to first create our new folder for this, which is what we're going to call exercise 1. Exercise 1. We do that, and then we can just move these into there. We can mark them all. Yep. If we're allowed to, we can move them all into there. Sometimes Explorer, does whatever it fancies and doesn't listen to you. So we drag those into there. Thank you, Explorer. So that was this is the exercise that we're working with today. This is essentially, we're not really going to be doing terribly much today. But this is where we would work in this first exercise. And for all the coming exercises, the subsequent exercises, we will do a similar job. We will create this folder with all these contents. And in the docs here, we might put the instructions, for example, or any other data we download that is relevant to us completing the project, something that we find interesting, some support material that we might need, not actual data that's going in, but other stuff, for example. And now we need one final folder for now. In many circumstances, if we consider this to be the project folder that we're working on, inside here we would create something called the raw data folder where we store all this untouchable data or unchangeable data. But as we're going to use the same raw data several times throughout this course, we'll lift it out one level so that it's easier to find and it makes more sense. So what we'll do is we create here a new folder and we'll call that raw data. So into this folder is where we're going to put all of those things that are the data that we will use that we don't want to change, or we're going to say we don't want to change. And then everything inside this folder, this exercise 1, is associated only with this exercise. This is, again, our raw data. So we keep this clear separation. So the next step is, we know we've created this folder structure. It wasn't terribly difficult. There's a whole lot in the instructions about paths. What are paths? We can start exploring those by clicking our way through this. This is our path. Again, up here, this path says C:, users, and documents. Git 1, that tells us where we are. We start at C, which is this computer, my computer right here, the hard drive there. I'm allowed to write to it because I can. You won't be able to write to C: on university computers because it's restricted. C: it's kind of a dangerous place otherwise, because it's also where you store the operating system on Windows. And so because Windows traditionally hasn't had terribly good security, there were restrictions on, it was advised, generally speaking, to not write to C: at all, write to a separate partition or a completely separate hard disk. That way you avoid a lot of problems of overwriting and changing things, all sorts of mess, and, permissions being given to the wrong thing. Doesn't matter, you won't be able to write to C: on university computers. On your own personal computer, you may very well be able to. Some people consider it best practice to never do that, even if it's your own computer and you know what you're doing. Some people say, no, just leave C code on for the operating system and perhaps most of the software, and then do everything else in a separate partition. There are some advantages to this. It means that should anything go wrong with your operating system, you need to reinstall. It's a safer way to reinstall if you only have to, if you can wipe everything off of the C colon. The details doesn't matter. So we go back. So this is our path up here. We've created these folders. So now we're in this Git 1. And if I click here, you can see we go down another level. It's expressed in this way. That's our path. And as I explained, we try to maintain all of this so that the names, we don't use any strange Swedish letters. This is an old habit. Nowadays, even in ArcMap, you can start to, they've actually improved the program, so you can, in a lot of circumstances, use the strange Swedish letters. You can even get away with spaces sometimes. But then sometimes it just says no. And this is the problem with using strange letters in this path or in any file name, is that it looks like it's fine. Things seem to be rolling along, especially when it comes to rasters. All of a sudden you do something, some action, either it just says, nope, can't do it, or it does something, and yeah, the results don't look weird. And maybe you don't get the same as the person sitting next to you, if you're allowed to sit next to each other yet. This is still COVID. So it may look a bit weird, and you can't figure out why. I did exactly the same as the other person. Probably, if you look at the path, if you look at the address to get to the files that you're using, you'll find a space or a Swedish letter there somewhere. Or maybe the name's a little bit too long, and that's what's done it. The program hasn't complained at all before. Maybe it's not even complaining now, it's just doing something odd. And that's the reason. So we try to avoid it. It's just a throwback to an older system. You just got to run with it. So now we've created these folders here, and we have our working folder, and we have this raw data folder, and there's nothing in it. So the next job is to download the raw data. You can see that that instruction comes somewhere in here, somewhere. We're just going to download our raw data. Yep. And previously, what we've done on this course is you downloaded the data yourself from something called GET, which is a database of data maintained by SLU, the Sveriges Lantbruksuniversitet. They have a contract to do this. And they've been changing the way they deliver files, and they've not been terribly helpful of late. And it's we've just decided to do the job for you, package everything nicely, correct the errors that they've introduced, and tidy things up, make it a little bit nicer. So now, instead of downloading data from GET, which you can still do, it's still there, the data is available for you, freely available. You just need a little more experience of GIS in order to be able to work with it, to understand what you're supposed to be doing. So we've done that part of the work for you. Now all you need to do is download a zip file with all the data, which is basically what you would have done before from GET. You would have downloaded zip files, but they would have already been in a format that would have been nice to work with. Now when you download from GET, they're not. So like I said, we tidied it up for you. It should hopefully work. So you'll click on the link and download the data. I'm just going to go fetch it from my computer here. I want that, so I'm just going to copy it in and go to, so you download it. It would end up in your downloads folder probably. You then go from downloads, take it in and copy it into this raw data folder. So we now paste it in here. That was very quick for me because it's on the same drive. And now we need to right click on it, and we're going to go 7-zip here, and we're going to extract here. We do that, and it starts extracting. This shouldn't take too long. It should be reasonably quick. This process might be a little slower when you're working on H colon. It just depends. And so now we have under Git 1 raw data, we have these folders, and we have the zip folder. We don't need that zip anymore. We can just take that away. So I'll briefly explain what these are. The DEM is a raster of elevation data. Ortho RF, the IRF. This is an orthophoto with infrared data. This is an orthophoto with a normal color image. This S2A subset is a satellite image that we will be using later on in the course. And here under Fastighetskartan is a vector map taken from Lantmäteriet. Fastighetskartan, the property map, contains lots of very useful information. So now we've done that, we get to the next stage. And now, once we've downloaded and unpacked our data, you see now we're going to start the program, ArcMap. Now this is a program that is has a few years now. Sort of, it's been around for a while, and it's dominant on the marketplace, which doesn't necessarily mean it's a good program. It's capable, it has lots of functions, and it is probably the piece of software that you will encounter in GIS when you come out to the marketplace, which is why we use it on this course. I personally don't like it, but that's my opinion. We're going to have to use it. There is a newer version called ArcGIS Pro. That comes with its own issues in terms of administration. It's a very similar kind of setup. If you can use ArcMap, you'll be able to use ArcGIS Pro. There are small differences, and it is actually a little more stable and faster. Yeah, we're not going to use it on this course, simply because of for administration purposes, and also because it's easier to go forward. Once you learn ArcMap, it's easier to go forward to ArcGIS Pro than to go backwards. And as I said, you'll probably encounter ArcMap when you get up to the workplace. So now I'm going to start ArcMap. There are a couple of ways of doing this. You'll use a remote session, probably, unless you're sitting at a computer at HIG with Arc installed. Now I have Arc on my computer, so I'm just going to type Arc, and there we see ArcMap. Here we have ArcGIS Pro. That's this more advanced version, but otherwise we want this ArcMap, and here the version is 10.8. So we click on that, start. And then we wait for a long time. This is going to take a while. Really quite a while. Check the clock down here. We'll see where we are when it actually starts. I'll speed this bit up. Yay, we're there. So this is what it looks like when we first start ArcMap. We get this, you should get this window where it asks you if you want to start with an open template here. We can look at this down here. We have this default database. We'll come to that later. This we will change for our work. This template, this just is a set of instructions to say what things should look like. We also have this thing here. What is this? There are help pages. The one good thing I will say about ArcMap, there isn't much good to be said from my part, I'm biased, the help pages are good. They're definitely worth looking into. Quite pedagogical in many respects. And even on the internet, they have pages there that are good. The older ones tend to be better. Some of the new ones aren't quite as good, I don't think. But yeah, the help pages are definitely worth exploring. You will find a lot of information here. They can be difficult to navigate through, but the information is there is good. So that was this. What's this? So here we have this address telling us where we're going to go to the full database. And here we have this little icon here. You'll recognize that. That'll come back later. But at the moment, we can just click on OK. So now I've clicked on OK. What's the next step for us? Right. So now we need to, when we look at this window here, you can see that what we've got is I've got a load of toolbars up here already, which is a bit silly of me. I shouldn't have done that. I should have cleared everything away. In fact, well, let's do that now. Okay, so I just clicked on Arc Toolbox. This is another one of those things that takes a while. Yeah, well, there we go. So I can, if I close that, just so that my window now will look something like yours. And if I get rid of all of these tools up here, I don't want those. So your window will probably look something like this. Snapping, has that gone down there? That shouldn't be there. Spatial analyst shouldn't be there. Yeah. So yours probably looks something like this. This is the start. And then we need to read the instructions, and it tells us, so we've done this, we've started the program, we've opened this empty folder, and what we want to do is set up all these tools, the things I just got rid of. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to Customize and Extensions. And here we want the tools that we will use are things like Spatial Analyst, Data Interoperability. Would be nice if Arc would respond. So this thing there, not responding, that is the most common message you'll see when working with Arc. Just constantly not responding. It is slow. You might be lucky and maybe on your computer things are going to work faster, but this is generally speaking one of the problems, and it's getting worse. It never used to be quite this bad, but of late, trying to work with Arc is a painfully slow experience. So let's just see if we can. No, we can't. Can we? Can't we? Maybe. So, not responding again. See, yeah. Really is a hateful experience. This is not a great way to introduce GIS, but there we go. Personally, I might prefer QGIS. You can perhaps understand why. Is it actually going to do anything? How about if I try? Well, that works. Network analysis, data interoperability does not. No, it's not there. Right, well, we'll skip that one and just hope that this is a bug in the interface and that we will be able to use those tools that we want there. We're not going to use them today anyway, so let's just, doesn't matter. So basically, these are the ones that we may end up using throughout the course. Network analysis, spatial analysis, analyst, and this data interoperability hopefully is going to work, but you know, ooh, look at that, now it's come. That was joy. Oh, excellent. This one perhaps less so geostatistical analysis. We can leave those marked, or you can click them away because we're not really going to be using any of these right now, but this is something that you might need to set up. Depending on the exercise that we're going to do, I will tell you to activate one or more of these. Spatial analyst is quite normal. We could probably actually just get rid of that one right now and that one right now and leave the other two, spatial analyst and data interoperability. Now, so we'll close those. What has that done? Not much. You can't really see much. What it has done is activated some licenses for us. Now, if I right-click up here, I can start adding some toolboxes. So editor's a good toolbox to have. Effects, we can add that one in. Actually, that's I think I suggest that in the instructions. Then we can network analysis when we want that tool. That'd be handy to have. We can put that in up there. And then we go down here. Spatial analyst, good one. All of these tools. Really, you don't want to make things too crowded up here because this is your working space, and yeah, it's not ideal to put in too much mess here. So the other thing we need to do is, if you remember when I started the program, rather unfortunately, I had a whole load of stuff on the right-hand side here. Well, we want those things on the right-hand side, and they are actually accessible from here, first of all. So let's just click on that. There it is. This is our Arc tool. Now, when the first time you click on this, it can take an age to open. As you see, I've already been working in here, so let's just close that down. It'll look something like this. Click on the pin there, and then it ends up as a tab there. Then it stays there on that side. That's good. We also want this catalog, so click on that, and then that can go there. Search is another good one to have, which is, let me see, there we go, search. You can put that there. Helps you find tools. So now we have a bunch of toolboxes up here. We've got some tools here that we can access, or subroutines, programs, whatever we want to call them. Here we have our table of contents. This is where we get a list of all the layers that are active in our project, and here is the main project area. So if we go back to the instructions again, we've done all this. We've clicked on that, and we've done all that, and so now we need to improve. We need to do this thing. Yes, we need to click on catalog. Now I, because I use my computer, right, I already have some connections. What we're going to do is create a connection, a fast way into where we're working for the computer, rather than us having to C or H in your case, and down. We just create this fast link in. So connect to folder, it's called. We'll do that, and then you try and find, in your case, it'll be an H colon. I know I'm working on a document, and I click on the GIP one there, and I'll leave it at that. I don't want to go in any further really, because if I do that, I can expand, and it will give me access to everything underneath it. So I've now connected to folder up there. I've done that. Our next thing is to, we're going to do this business where we this folder connection, and we're going to do this geodatabase. So we're going to create a geodatabase. So we go back to catalog, and we want it. We can put it either directly under exercises here, or we can put it under edit. Edit might be a good place. So we right click there, go down to new, file geodatabase. And then we can change the name of that if we like. So we, what does it say rename? There it says rename. So then we just write in X1 or something like that. So this is exercise 1. This is our geodatabase. This is where data will be stored. Now, when we do something, when we create a new file, this is where it should end up. So we have in Explorer already created this folder structure. We've got hold of our data. We can see all of our data here, or at least the folders containing our data. And under edit, we've created this database. But as yet, we haven't stored anything. We've still got an untitled ArcMap project. So we go to File, we go to Map Document Properties. That, and then, well, first thing we're going to do actually is we're going to say, I don't want to use that database. I want to use, this will take a while, not responding. No. Right. So there we go. And then it was under exercise, and then I put it under edit. There we go, that's there. Did you have it? No, now it did. So now we can see our default database is this one that I've just created. You can't actually read it here because there's enough room, but it is. Underneath it, we have this thing called path names. Store relative path names to data source. That we want to do. Doesn't seem to have changed anything. What this means is, in a minute, we're going to save our project, and we're going to save it under exercise 1. We'll save a project folder. If we hadn't clicked in this store relative paths, every time the computer or this project tries to find a file, a data file, it will start looking at C colon in my case, or H colon in your case, to the user, and it'll go to look for this folder, then it will look for this folder, then it will look for this folder, then look for raw data, for example, or to try and find this database. It starts all the way up here and walks its way down until it finds the right place for the data. With a relative path, if let's say we store it under exercise 1, we store our project folder under exercise 1, instead of going all the way to the beginning, it says, right, I'll start where I am now, and where I am now, there should actually be, if I go one step up to this folder called Git1, just one step up, I'll just go up one step. And in there, I should, wherever that one step up is, I should be able to find a folder called raw data. I look in there and I'll be able to find the data I'm looking for. Oh yeah, and there it is. What's the big advantage of that? It means that if we should change anything, if we should move our project around, if we decide that we don't want to be working on this computer, we want to be working on another computer, or change the name, we don't like documents, we want document, or whatever the change is, we can move things and our project won't break. All of the paths will be maintained, because rather than starting at the beginning and looking for, oh, this way down here, it just says up one step, look there, down, down, down. It's a relative path, relative to where the project is, where am I standing now, up one step or down one step, or oh, that sort of move, rather than going back to the beginning and searching all the way down. So the next thing we need to do is put in a title. So this is Git1 exercise 1, for example. Summary, a quick run through of starting a project. And the description, I lack imagination. And then we put in the author. So all of this, guess what this sort of thing is? It is metadata. So we type in our names there, credits, well, that could be because they own the data. And for this project, we're not going to be using any ESA data. We don't need to bother with tag. You can fill in as much of this as you want, but the more you do here, the better it is for you. And then we can press this backstab or whatever it is. I can't remember what it is in English anymore. Click on OK, and we're done. We still haven't saved the project. If we look here, if we go back to this map documents properties, it says file, and it's blinking up there, and it doesn't know what to do. And we can't do anything in there. That's because we need to save this. So there's a save button there, or we can go to file, file and save. Either one works. And now we need to locate, see how quickly this goes, see, and we want to go to users, and to me, and then we want to find documents, and then we want to find, there we go, and into our exercise. And at the moment it's called Untitled MXD. Now we can save this under edit because we are going to be editing it. It might be tidiest in there. We'll do that. Exercise 1. Yep. And now it's got this name up here, and if we click on File and we go to Map Document Properties, we can see up there it's received its name. So that was that. Next step of the process, our catalog. Now we're going to read in data, I believe. If we go back to the instructions, we've done all that bit. Yeah, data, okay, raster, and we're going to bring in some raster data and bring in some vector data. So if we go to catalog, and our raw data folder, in instructions, I suggest we look at this ArcGIS. So it's an ortho photo in true color. And we drag that over there. These work. Yay, it works. And we see that we get our image here. It's a color image. It looks pretty much as we'd imagine the Earth to look like from above. It's not strictly speaking true. And the file, the layer name is here. And if we right click on that, we can go to our properties there, and we click on Symbology there, and we can see that it's an RGB composite where the red comes from band 1, the green comes from band 2, and the blue comes from band 3. This is how our data has been visualized. But what does this mean with bands? Well, our data is actually, all the colors in here are a combination of 3 different colors, really. The primary colors are red, green, and blue. So we can expand that little plus there, and we can drag that in as well. And then we get just a grayscale image. So when we then click on the properties of that, we look at this, look at the symbology, and it's just stretched grayscale. It looks like that. It gets slightly different, you see a discrete color. It knows that there aren't 3 bands for it to visualize. Even though this is part of this image, we've dragged it in as a single separate layer. It's a separate image. When we right click on this, we can see under symbology that we get this. It now treats it differently. We're visualizing all 3 bands at once, and it becomes an RGB composite. So this symbology, it changes depending on the type of data that we have. Speaking of which, let's kill that, and we'll move on to our vector. So that's under Fastighetskartan here. And in the instructions, I believe I tell you to go for this one, clean my middle. Yeah, don't ask me. Pull that over, and we get this image here, which is vector data. And if we look here, we can see that we have this table, and we've got all these details here. But everything is kind of the same color. We can distinguish these lines, but it's not a terribly interesting map. So if we can just remove that. We can even remove that one, actually. Let's do that. Let's remove that. We go to catalog, and we'll take this Fastighetskartan Lir, this layer file. We drag that in, do that, and it's not working for some reason. Why are you not working? What about that one? Yeah, there's that one. And I want to know why. You know what? I'm going to sort this out and come back. So, finally sorted that one out. Part of this problem is, as is written in the instructions, delivery has been changed and certain things don't work anymore, and I've had to do a certain amount of editing, and obviously got the wrong file there somewhere along the line. So now I have the right file. So now when we go to here and we put in this _e for edit, pull that in, put that up there. It works. So that's what it should look like, and that's what this mark-e that we can see here. If we can actually close all of these other ones down, and then so that my file we looked at earlier should have looked like this, but instead we got just that boring file. So all of this coloring, all this styling is here, and it's based on, we go to the properties here, we can see that the Symbology uses this detailtype here to do all this styling. And what is this detailtype? Well, that is in the attribute table here, it's this. More on this in the vector lecture and this sort of thing, but this is just an introduction to how we work with Arc. Now, in the rest of the exercise, you will also then examine this folder. You will look at this folder, which is actually our fastighetskartan, and we will look at, and you'll compare that to what it looks like here. Here we have a whole long list of files. That looks like lots, and this looks like even more. So you'll spend some time looking at that. One quick tip, this where it says lock, that's because we have the files open in Arc, and that will disappear as soon as you close Arc. It's just a temporary file that Windows creates. It's not really there. And then the other part of the exercise is to actually open this KML file. And the KML file is stored now. I haven't uploaded that for you yet, so I'm going to have to go find it from somewhere. And that is in here. And then we want there. And it's this thing here. And that we can open with Google Earth. This looks like this. You will need to open it with Google Earth. You'll find that program on a remote server. I don't think it's installed on many of the computers in the computer rooms. So you'll need to open it in a remote server. And the only thing you need to do with this is just read through the instructions and examine what's going on. So this is a very, very simple introduction to remote sensing. We're just looking at the world from above. You don't need to do anything more than just open this file and then fly around, going to different places. Read the text here, and we will zoom into different structures. So if we click on that, and we can zoom in, a starting point here, and we try and examine what's going on. And this will go through time as well. So we can see that we have images from different periods. We can slide this slider up here and look at how things change. So that's what you're going to do with Google Earth. Not much more than that. We also look at, I can close Google Earth. So we don't want to keep that file. We also can open this with this Google Earth file. We can open it with Notepad++. And we can see that it's just a text file, actually. And it's what's something called it's XML. And it's a version of XML called KML, which is actually a subset of GML. This is in the vector lecture. But we can see here we have all these descriptions. This is how you write XML. We say here, this begins the style tag here, and it's got this name, this S yellow pushpin H10. And then we close the style. We have all these descriptions here. Not much is going on. It's fairly empty. And now we start getting to something that's actually happening. But this is just styling data. And then we get further down. Now we get to the geography. This is actually the spatial stuff. And we can see here, so we open a folder, we can see that we can this tag says, here we start describing a folder, and it has the name remote sensing training. That's the end of the name there. Open, this is a quality that it has. Yes, it's going to be open. This is a 1 there. 1 means true, 0 means false. And then we have a description that goes from here to here. The description ends there. This backslash tells us it's the end of the description. And then we have a timestamp when we're going to be looking at this part of the world. And here we start getting the coordinates and stuff like this. So this is what an XML file looks like. It's just a plain text file that we can open in a text editor like this. I guess while we're here, we could actually look at opening it in another program, just for the fun of it. If we double click on it, it's associated with Google Earth. But otherwise, we can go down and, well, let's have a look. That was Notepad++, but we can click on Open With, and we can open it with just a normal Notepad. That looks like that. Pretty much the same thing. Very similar programs. Open With, and we can put here, and we can. Well, let's have a look. What can we open it with? Let's open it with Word. Try that. Open it with Word. Saving the file will remove these elements permanently. Okay, so we're not going to save it. And it looks like this. Now we can see everything. It's all there. It's just not actually making much sense. So we don't really want that, do we? Let's just get rid of it. The normal way to open it is like this. Just click on that, and Google Earth should open if we have Google Earth. So that's that. Have fun with it.